the countries on the African continent. So, having given you that, we are glad once again to invite you to share with us this evening. We're going to be talking about a number of topics of interest to all of us. And we hope that if you have a comment, you may reach us by phone at 858 251 6111, or you may go online to GOD Radio1, that's number one.com. And I'm joined by Dr. Leonard Thompson of Mandate and GOD, and he partners with us in terms of this program. And so we collectively are bringing you information, both print and digitally and online as well as the internet. So we're excited about the opportunities that we have here. And glad to have Dr. Thompson with us. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, thank you so much. Again, I almost want to say there is a soap opera that was like called In Guiding Light, As the World Turned,
Search
and
for
in,
tomorrow and a brighter
in,
day.
in General Hospital, and All My Children.
Yes.
And you know how preachers, you could put them all together and put a whole sermon together. Well, I want you to know that the General Hospital seems to be overflowing with the young and the restless.
Yes, the young and the restless, and it turns out that they are all somebody's children, many not ours. And
Yeah.
so it's a very tremendous tragedy. We've reached a point of 1,000 deaths a day. Kind of reminds us where New York was back in May, and not only that, but to see that California was doing so well in the beginning. Now that 1,000 deaths is nationwide, California is averaging 520 some cases every day, new cases, new deaths 115 or 20. Over 500 people in the state have died, and I think we have exceeded 25,000 positive tests and infections in the state. And so much of this is from people refusing to wear masks and to social distance and to argue with science and to join the politics of a president who just recently discovered a need for a mask. And it's quite a tragic event.
Yeah, one of the things that this is really sad is that we said that California seemed to had done everything right, in that we literally were staying the course and looked like we was going to miss the onslaught of the major hit. Now we are in the midst of the battle and the storm, and people are being diagnosed day by day, and so we are in a pandemic of health. We're in a pandemic of social unrest, and we're also in a pandemic of basically financial.
We are in all three of those areas, and the tragedy is being the wealthiest and perhaps one of the smartest nations on earth. We could have avoided all of this, but for our behavior, our inability to be disciplined and to follow instructions. I think that freedom has spoiled some people, and it's reached a point that freedom has become synonymous with no responsibility.
Hmm.
And there is no such thing as absolute freedom. There has to be some connection. And so we see that now in terms of where we are. We're 15 weeks out from a presidential election with a president who's already shown signs of trying to sabotage that election before it comes, who seems to be set on trying to stay in office by any means necessary. Many of us even believe that after the vote is in and he's defeated, they'll probably have to evict him from the White House by force. And the only thing more tragic than Donald Trump's incompetence and ignorance is the fact that people in the Republican Party who can think, intelligent people, people like Mitch McConnell, who had an opportunity to be a great statesman, have sold all of that out to buy a campaign and a rhetoric that is charged with hatred and racism. And I say that they have made America's new theme in Money We Trust. The new theme is that racism is greater than democracy in terms of our ability to hold on and to exclude anyone that doesn't appear to agree with us. And it is an opportunity for the rest of this country to reverse what sociologists have found, that the masses will make a noise for a moment and they will fizzle and go away. But this group of people who support the likes of Donald Trump, they are consistent, they are immune to logic, they are immune to reason, they are immune to death and destruction as they see it visit among all their neighbors and our friends, and they will kill as many of us as necessary to hold on to the illusion that their concept of a great America is what really makes America great.
So, with that being said, I always say that sometimes when we talk about different people, sometimes we give them relevance. So I'm gonna move past number 45, and I want to get down to some actions that are taking place right now. Um, Concerned that they are now dispatching federal agents and police to major cities, and it seems to not working in Oregon. Why would they continue to do it without even the requests coming in from those cities?
This action is probably the most dangerous action of all of his time in the White House. That this man has, in effect, taken an attitude similar to what Hitler did in Germany. What the SS was in Germany, that's what Trump has in effect created by taking elements of the FBI, the Justice Department, the U.S. Marshal, the DEA, and dispatching these people into cities where he has no legal authority to do so, the takeover policing, to arrest people without any identification, to ignore the whole concept of probable cause. People are not told why they're being picked up, put in unmarked vans, taken to federal buildings, processed and released back on the streets, being met and with folks in military gear who don't necessarily have to be legal if the public wanted to fight, because they could be skinheads or white nationalists dressed in their gear as they did in Charlottesville, coming out to meet the protesters. And so this is a very dangerous place, but it's also compounded by what the likes of what we saw in Chicago recently. Yesterday, 15 people were shot in Chicago. I think four killed. Over the last week, 62 people shot, 12 people dead. Clearly, war is raging. It is not a surprise, though, because we have known going back to the 60s and the Kerner Commission that when unemployment is up, jobs are down, things seem hopeless for the masses in many of the urban areas, crime does spike. So far, crime has been low, and it's been the protests and demonstrations that have gone up. But we ought to remember in Chicago that there are no gun manufacturing businesses on the street corners, that guns are being brought in and ammo, and somebody is benefiting from this murder and this slaughter that's claimed the lives of all kinds of people. And so, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, doesn't want it. The mayor of Seattle didn't want it. There are threats that it's going to spread into other cities, Atlanta and places, and that is going to happen the way the president is going about it, whether the governors or the mayors of those states care or not. So it's another expression of arrogance and ignorance over law. Courts are not saying anything. Um, the Republican lawmakers are standing with Trump. When we look at the death toll in places like Florida and Alabama or Arizona, and we see places where we have Idaho today is another hot spot. We still have Republican governors arguing against wearing a mask and social distancing, even though they've run out of ICU beds, ventilators, and the death count is so that bodies are stacking up in trailers. And it's just unbelievable that in the full view of the loss of life, in full view of the fact that if 95%, according to models, wore masks, we could save 40, 35 to 40,000 lives between now and November, and yet people will not comply.
So, I want us to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the education system, and I want to talk. and let's explore the uh, energy that is being pushed by the White House, by the Secretary of Education, and the teachers union all around America. This is from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren right here on GOD Radio 1. We'll be right back.
How far are you willing to drive for savory soul food and Southern hospitality? Join the countless number of satisfied customers who have discovered Jay's Southern Cafe, the hidden jewel in Jacumba, California. Jay's Southern Cafe is widely known for dishing up soul food style cuisine that will make your mouth salivate. Everything from traditional breakfast favorites like omelets, waffles, hotcakes, eggs, and bacon, to lunch favorites like soups and salads, pulled pork, fish, chicken, and hot link sandwiches, including burgers and fries. But real soul food lovers drive from near and far to experience Chef Jay's succulent signature barbecue and scrumptious golden fried fish. Not to mention all the mouth-watering sides like cheesy mac and cheese, barbecue beans, collard greens, potato salad, coleslaw, cornbread, and more. You've got to come and experience Jay's Southern Cafe, located at 44461 Old Highway 80 in Jacumba, California. For a full list of menu items, visit jaysoutherncafe.com or call 619-766-0053. Come dine at Jay's Southern Cafe, where everyone and everything we serve is special. Follow us on Facebook at Jay's Southern Cafe, breakfast, lunch, and barbecue. Or call 619-766-0053. Now you make sure you come and see us. You hear?
Lines such as merchandise or new music, or perhaps a special event or change in services you offer. Let us help you get the word out. Here at GODRadio1.com, you'll get the creative support and push that you need to drive customers and supporters directly to you. Our prices are competitive and may be designed to include social media campaigns and more. For detailed information about our radio advertisement campaigns, call us today at 858-251-6111, extension 505, or visit our website at godradio1.com. Remember, we're here for you.
Well, we're back here on GOD Radio 1 from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. Well, let's get into it. You a grandfather. You worked with was on the school board. You have children that have gone through public schools. What do you say about we got to get the kids back to school no matter what?
I think these people are absolutely out of their minds. And I think that there's a disservice to the kids. And I hope the parents will be smarter than the school people who are having this discussion. As you and I have talked about this so many times before, they're not even capable of keeping the schools clean without the virus. And now you're talking about social distancing and masks and as if you're going to control when the numbers in the classroom for all of our elementary schools is far in excess of what it should be. You know, you're talking about people having 30 kids to one teacher, and we haven't been able to get a teacher's aide, and then all of a sudden we're going to add to that the health elements. There's no learning that can take place in that environment.
Now watch this, and I want to get this. Let's go to the government, and let's go to the top educator, the Secretary of Education, who is determined to push schools back in, even if she has to, like they say, defund the police. If she has to defund public schools and do private schools, as long as she gets the kids back into school at the risk factor, not only of the children, but whole families and communities.
Well, here's what the game plan is right now. I think that everything that Donald Trump and his administration does between now and November is geared to play to a base that's dwindling. Betsy DeVos has not been a friend of public education, and she has been a disaster the whole time she's been in that position. They do not have the local control over education funds. I know that for a fact because I was there when we wrote elementary and secondary ed, school lunch education of the handicapped, and all those things that came through the U.S. Congress. And the only leverage that you have on a local school district is the withholding of funds for specific federally funded programs if they don't want them. And when we first went through this with ESEA, which is now Leave No Child Behind, many smaller school districts opted to ignore it altogether. And so I think the teachers union position, you mentioned them earlier, most of the teachers unions are concerned because over 40% of the teachers nationally are at risk. They are in an age group that now they're trying to decide, do they retire, quit, or what do they do? Or do they go to work and die? Because they know, and we've seen the numbers go up for children testing positive, and yet we still have no national plan, no national approach. If we didn't do anything but model what the state of New York did, we would be in better shape. So I'm just hoping and asking parents that you have some intelligence, and no matter what they do, no one should be allowing a child to go back into a classroom before January of 2021.
So watch this. A survey came out today from unions and school districts asking the teachers their choice. Would they like to have access to be able to teach from their classrooms their distance learning? And that's the first step of trying to get people back on the school campus. If we can then start requiring the teachers to actually do the distance learning from their classroom.
And what did the survey say?
Well, they're surveying now. They're asking people's opinions at this point. What would you rather do? Would you rather be in the classroom, be able to teach from the classroom, and then no students and everything is distant learning where you have all your tools?
Same problem, because if the administrators have to be on campus and all of the staff people have to be there, there's still risks of the spread of the disease. And they don't have the resources to disinfect the entire facility every day the way it should be, every classroom, with every degree that it needs to be, unless there's no one going to be in the classroom but that teacher is going to be locked when they enter and leave. And so I don't see it. I don't see it happening. And again, it's a question. All of this discussion, there's more discussion about reopening schools and businesses than there is concern about the loss of life.
Yeah, and the real question comes in is that schools are a place of gathering. And if you then have staff on school campuses, kids are just going to naturally gravitate to those school environments. Parents are going to just naturally say, "Oh, my teacher's there. Let me just go and say hi."
Oh, they have
You
to.
know, so unless you have guards outside and you're locking down the school totally, you are going to see interaction between community, kids, parents, and staff. And the question comes is that, and I always ask this question: if I get COVID by being on the school campus, am I using workman's comp or am I using my own sick leave? Because you brought me here because that is my position. When teachers are not getting combat pay or hazardous pay, they're not getting, do we put all the teachers in a bubble? And we give them hazmat suits and breathing machines to protect them.
They won't get workers' comp. Those laws haven't even been thought of. They haven't been amended to cover this scenario. That's why in New York you saw Governor Cuomo doing things like passing special funding for the first responders in terms of extra duty, hazardous duty pay, and all the things that were tried to be done there. We don't have any of those programs available on a national scale. And we saw the result of that disaster following 9/11, when all of the people who worked on that site ended up sick with lung infestations, and one of the last ones died within the last 2 years from that, without Congress passing a bill to give the kind of service that they needed. Remember, if you talk about this whole thing that you mentioned, Dr. Thompson, we don't have still. We're just a few days away from the collapse of the unemployment and all of that. The legislation is still sitting on McConnell's desk. They don't want to let it off. Now the Republican mind is saying we're gonna hold up actually until we get a some kind of payroll tax relief. So everything that comes out from a Republican standpoint is slanted toward giving benefit to big business over serving and saving the lives of people. And we need to wake up and realize that.
So the question comes in, if you were to advise at this point for parents and for teachers, January, 1st of January, going back, and we need to prepare for it because they came out in California and they have basically said the sports season is not going to take place in the fall, but they're going to double or pack it all in the 3 seasons almost into 2 seasons and starting things in December.
Well, we got to be careful of who's controlling the dialogue for us because while all of this discussion about school opening and sports and all of that kind of stuff is important, let's look at some real things. Every week we have people like My Brother's Keeper, Paving Great Futures, 5K Hip Hop Wellness Program, just tons of volunteers from the community packing food every day, putting together bags and boxes, distributing food as money is raised. We have people who should be making donations to help us do that because thousands of people are being fed now every week. The lines are growing, the cars are growing, and many instances like in the Jacobs scenario, which is on a Tuesday, at first it was cars, and now they're serving a couple of hundred people in terms of walk-ups because everybody doesn't have cars. We got at least 3 churches, New Paradise Baptist Church, Greater Life, and then we don't want to forget First Methodist that are giving away tons of food. People are gathering produce. They're working with the food bank. They're going east, feeding San Diego. We have food being put out there. So these are real issues. There's a question of how long can our volunteers do this with no compensation or income, and people are scrounging to get more food items. 3 of these churches now are doing hot meals Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week. And so we need to be looking at what do we do to reinforce what's taking place.
Yeah.
And that means that the school is not an issue, and unless the numbers change in a drastic way, we get a vaccine, we can inoculate people, we still don't need to be back in school before January in terms of letting the shutdown, stay-at-home order dissipate the spread of this virus.
So one of the things that I would say to people is simply this. We can rush to get children back in the school because we are definitely concerned about their education. You can rotate kids, but you can't rotate staff members. So if staff members are coming down with the virus, you still have children that are not going to be able to be taught because the staff members will not be there. And so we have to show the concern of life, but we also have to realize that if we rush back in, we could be in a bigger hole. It might take us years to recuperate from the death and the sorrow and the pain that the kids will experience, especially in our inner cities. And we're not even really looking at how many Latino and African American people are passing away from the coronavirus at an astronomically higher rate than everyone else.
Well, this is important, what you're saying in terms of money. And we've got people trying to raise funds. But I also want to use this opportunity to talk about why our role, both GOD Radio 1 and Voice and Viewpoint, is so important. Because we are close to the people on the ground in the very areas where most of us live and most of us are being victimized. And we need to also keep our eye on the rest of the state. One of the things that's helped Voice and Viewpoint has been the efforts of California Black Media under the leadership of Sister Regina Wilson. They've been keeping the articles coming in terms of what's happening statewide, keeping issues, because while we're dealing with the virus down here, the California Black Legislative Caucus was dealing with the whole issue of Proposition 16, which we talked about last week, that came out of AB 5. And so we can't miss these other issues that are on the table. We still got an issue here in terms of police, monies that have been diverted. We got some relief for renters. Voice and Viewpoint is trying to make people see that they can go after that. And Dr. Thompson, we had a very interesting statistic come out today. They said of 4,700 people, homeless people, who were housed at the San Diego Convention Center, only 10 people tested positive.
Wow.
out of 4,700.
Wow.
And they're trying to find out how did that happen. So we don't want to miss these things that are closest to us while we're being distracted with other issues
Yeah.
and not helping to take care of business right where we live.
And their immune system, because of all the things that they have to do to survive, might be
Yes.
a little bit higher. One of the things I want to say this to the California black media, I love the fact when we have professionals that come online and says, "Hey, when is my turn to come on the show?" We've
Yes.
been waiting to hear that, haven't we,
Yes.
Dr.
Yes, we
Warren?
have.
And so
And
we
so
go schedule that.
yes, and so we want Ms. Wilson to know that we are planning Zoom calls and connections, and we're gonna have California Black Media on there with us. And let me say also that within I wear two hats other than Voice and Viewpoint publisher. I have been instrumental in pulling together all of the black newspapers in California, Oregon, and Washington, Arizona, and Colorado as we're reorganizing so that we can work closer because the papers have become the trusted messenger. And while we're working to regroup there, California Black Media has been so instrumental in keeping some very important public policy issues for us before the legislature and before us being involved with it. So we have to be able to work on more than one front at a time. And so I'm excited about the challenges ahead of us. And we have the world zooming now. We got
Yeah.
people zooming all over and around us, but we don't want to get lost in the zooms.
Exactly. One of the things I do love about what's taking place with the publishers is seeing the family connection and seeing the next generation and how the senior leaders are sewing into the young up and coming people and allowing them to take charge and allowing them to really be engaged and to see how I feel is the community of the publishers are coming together because when I grew up and I know when you grew up, it was like we gleaned from our seniors and we sat and we learned and then they then put us in position to grow and to develop. It's almost like training mode. Okay, we done did
Yes.
this. Now we need for you to show us you can do this. Before we give it to you, show it to us. And people are just really stepping up. So I'm really excited about seeing the generations that are coming together.
Well, I also want to keep mentioning, I don't like to do the horn tooting, but sometimes it's necessary because we have Black Men and Women United who had a very extensive conversation on Tuesday at our weekly meeting with the DA's office about the task force that we were responsible for getting created just as a result of how school officials were treating parents, getting restraining orders and trying to keep them out. And so we've been working on that. But around the country, NNPA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which is now 80 years old, and the Black Press, which is in its 193rd year, just 2 weeks ago held an annual convention, and it was done virtually online. And there were 65,000 people who attended that convention.
Wow.
And so I see that's a very powerful statement. That's probably more people than attended all the conventions they had in 80 years. And now we see now this week that Comic-Con is doing a virtual convention, and I'm sure their number is going to exceed 1 million because when they were here in body, they were bringing 100,000 people a year to San Diego, and that's going to go up tremendously. And all of these changes are going to impact the new normal that we're going to have after this takes place. And so people are not going to be rushing back into hotels and into brick and mortar buildings, and who knows, some of these hotels might end up being studios for the homeless because of the lack of resources that are going to be out there.
Well, Dr. Warren, we're going to take another commercial break, and I would like to come back and let's go and delve into what we see the new normal looking like after this is passed, right here on GODRadio1.com.
Have you been in a car accident? Bill collectors hounding you? About to lose your house? Your car? If so, you need to contact the law offices of Odin and Green, San Diego's oldest African American law firm. For over 35 years, the law offices of Odin and Green have provided quality legal services for the community. They pride themselves in giving each and every client individual attention. They are located at 701 B Street, Suite 540 in downtown San Diego. Call them now at 619 702 0800. That's 619 702 0800. At Odin and Green, experience matters. Si habla español. The San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper is San Diego's oldest and largest African American publication. We bring you news for and about our community. Your stories matter to us. Thank you for allowing us to serve you for nearly 6 decades. Your support enables us to continue to forge ahead, informing you with news tailored to your needs. In addition to subscribing to our weekly publication, consider using Voice and Viewpoint to promote your business and events. Call us at 619-266-2233 or send an email to ads@sdvoice.info for details on how to get started. If you have advertising needs, contact us. Our prices are both fair and reasonable. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Voice and Viewpoint or visit our website at www.sdvoice.info. Remember, a people without a voice cannot be heard.
Well, we're right back here at GOD Radio 1 from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. As we left, we said we were going to come back and we were going to talk about what does the new normal look like as we make it through this pandemic, as well as all the pandemics that we're facing right now, from racial injustice to police reform, health issues, and then I want to say, and what's the new normal going to look like for the church community?
Oh, yes.
As well as, we talked about the school community, but even the church community.
Well, I think that, first of all, as a pastor, and I look at the church community, I was really disappointed to hear church people complaining about being closed because the church is not the building, the church is the people. Mm-hmm. And when Jesus said, upon this rock I'll build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, he was not speaking of Peter, but he was speaking of the revelation that came when he asked Peter, who do men say that I am? And he said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Mm-hmm. And so now we have, I know Eagles Nest Christian Center, we meet online every Sunday, and we have a great time. We are there with our Bible study from 9 to 10:30, and then we're in church from about 11 to 12, and then we're online another hour just talking and interacting with people. And we know we're not going to come back anytime soon. My oldest member is 90 years old, mm-hmm. and we have people who have children and grandchildren living with them in congested spaces, and we don't need the young element, which is making up close to 50% of 40 and under of those who are being infected. We don't need them to bring that home and then infect grandma and grandpa and people whose immune systems are compromised to lose them. So, the churches are beginning to catch on. I understand in San Diego there were some dollars given for masks and temperature gauges and disinfectants and that kind of thing. I know at least one church is meeting outside on a parking lot just the same way it used to happen for the Crystal Cathedral, many years ago up in Anaheim. But this is an opportunity, a spiritual opportunity for people to regroup. When everything is shut down except God, this is a chance to regroup and to reprioritize. And I hope that we take advantage of it. We're trying to urge people. I want to say that my publisher down in the Inland Valley News, who's also a pastor, Tommy Morrow, he does a daily briefing mm-hmm. With his members. Mm-hmm. And so every day and his briefings are tremendous. He's got scripture and he's got word to mm-hmm. keep people connected. And that's what it's all about, is keeping them connected. So I think some of us are going to be fine church-wise because of how our priority is the word first. Now, those people whose churches just represent corporate entities trying to raise funds for the mother corporation, they're going to be in difficulty.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I know that some people out there might take it a little offensive, but I am really proud of so many of my pastors, and I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start off with you, Dr. Warren.
Hmm.
I'm proud of you because I mean you done jumped into this digital era, and you like saying, okay, now, Doc, we're gonna have to get an app, and we're gonna have to do
Oh
this, and we're gonna
yeah.
have to do that, and that is what I'm seeing. I'm proud of what I would say are senior pastors because I've seen more senior pastors who've never been on Facebook, Zoom, or anything, literally using these vehicles.
When it should
And
be.
they are making a difference because now they're like, hold on. I talked about my Uncle Charles. My Uncle Charles, he using it, and I know that he's seeing the expansion of people that, wait a minute, Dr. Warren, they're like, wow, I didn't know Dr. Warren was that deep. He really do know the word. Hold on, let me tune into him. I called a pastor up the other day and I said, I'm gonna write a book called I Think I'm Cheating on My Pastor because there's so many great messages out there
Oh yeah.
that you're listening to 5, 6 sermons a day, you're visiting church. I literally feel like during this season that God's word is being heard, and the new normal is going to be the four walls will no longer limit us. We will be in the highways and the byways.
Well, one of my favorite recent messages came out of a discussion with Pastor Tommy Morrow. And 2 weeks ago, this message was on being dormant, being distant, and being disconnected, and how this virus has worked on that in terms of people's spiritual connection as well as their secular one. And so you're right. It's been a phenomenal time. I had an experience this morning. Today is one of my grandson's 17th birthday. And I called him early this morning to wish him happy birthday and said, well, I want to send you a few dollars. And I said, do I do it through Western Union or MoneyGram? And he said, no, Grandpa, just put it on Cash App. He said, go on my phone. I said, well, it might take a few hours to get this done, but before the end of the day, I had downloaded and signed up with Cash App and made arrangements to go. So, I mean, each day we grow a little bit more in this technological thing.
Yeah, Cash App and Venmo. I mean, it's quicker than ATM now.
Oh yeah.
And then if you don't want if you want instant, you get it instant, or they give you a card. And you can just move forth with it. There's so many ways of that this pandemic has allowed us to start being our creative beings. And I tell people that favor is not fair. And if we set it before God, he will show us everything that we need to do in this season
I'm telling
to
you,
flourish.
this is the season for God's people. And let me just make a footnote that my personal lag is not our business lag.
Yeah.
Voice and Viewpoint is on top of the whole digital thing from PayPal to electronic transactions, and they do all of that, and I don't even worry about it. But what you just said, this season, as I talk to believers, I'm finding people are being blessed in such ways that it never happened before. And it just shows you how God has a sense of humor, because you would think that for some of our folks, this would be the worst of times, but it's almost like when he said, A Tale of Two Cities. This is the best of times and the worst of times. And for believers, it's becoming the best of times. And I'm telling people every day, if you just keep God in the program, you're going to be all right. You ain't going to have to worry about it. It certainly works for us because we're being blessed with everything that we do.
Now I'm gonna tell you something, and because I had a whole dialogue about a year ago about no other woman is gonna tell me what to do except for my wife.
Is that right?
And because everybody was talking about Alexa.
Yeah.
And Alexa this and Alexa this. I said, Alexa can't come up into my house and try to tell me what to do. I got one wise voice that's going to tell me what to do. Well, Dr. Warren, Alexa is now, you can say to Alexa, once you put in the code, you can say, Alexa, play God Radio 1. And
All right.
and she will respond. giving you the best eclectic music mix in gospel and play the station.
And play it,
So
okay?
I'm gonna let everybody know that I'm gonna give Alexa a pass. She still can't come to my house.
No, but she
But
can
for-
help
yeah.
promote GOD Radio.
Everybody who got Alexa, put it in, and you don't even have to push a button. All you got to do is tell Alexa to turn it on for you.
Well,
so
you know,
part of the new normal.
but I think that this GOD Radio 1 is a sleeper for a lot of people don't realize that while we don't have a physical gospel station in San Diego, if you got GOD Radio 1 and you got the app and you get in your car, you can hit that thing and put it on your Bluetooth and you listen to it on your radio while you're moving and getting things done. And so this is a phenomenal time. The new normal that we're talking about, I want our people to back up for a moment, take a look at what's going on around you, what's working, what's not working, what's going to be different. Let me give you an example. Brand Trends, which owns Joseph A. Banks Clothing. Joseph A. Banks has been a standard in men's clothing, especially the upper end of business for over 100 years. And they just filed bankruptcy. They just closing down. They're going to end up closing over 500 stores because people are not buying suits. The clothing industry is like 90% of losses. We see Macy's laying off people. And people are saying, oh, look, I can get away with putting a shirt on top of my pajamas. I ain't got to get a suit and a tie and go out and do that. And even when we go out again, it's going to be on a limited basis because people are adjusting. Two observations I will share with you. The Social Security Administration discovered that when it sent people home to work because of the virus, their productivity went up. It actually went up. Now they're trying to figure out how they can make people come back, but the workers don't want to come back. The IRS had over 300 people infected with the virus, and of the 300 people, they had 80 deaths. And so now they're working and sort of figuring out how they're going to make the adjustment. And all we have to do is look at what people are doing. I would like to say we've done something interesting here. GOD Radio 1 has come up with a face mask, and here I have one that we've come up with for Voice and Viewpoint. And our face masks.
Y'all know.
Yeah, we're making them available. Okay.
Yeah.
And hey, you know, why not promote what's happening within our community as opposed to just grabbing something off of a stand when you're not giving back and helping anyone. So
Yeah.
this is the new normal. The new normal is opportunity to do what hasn't been done, to examine how it can work, and to make sure that we get plugged in and not become just the consumers, but also a producer.
And one of the things that I think that we're going to have to get some of these young people on, because I just found out, I think 2 days ago, that the young people are getting paid to play games on video. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting paid? Yeah. People give tokens and coins, and when they watch you play, and if they like what you're doing, they donate coins to you, and you get so many coins, you can cash it in. I mean, there's crazy stuff that is out there now that is technologically savvy, but people are finding ways of making money. I saw this, and I brought this on my show. I'm gonna bring it to you, and then we're gonna talk about the stimulus package.
Okay.
But I want to say this. Now, Dr. Warren, I'm gonna give you this Shark Tank.
All right.
I'm watching Shark Tank,
Okay.
and an African American couple come on,
All right.
and they have fried chicken in front of everybody. And they said, we got the best fried chicken in the world.
Okay.
You know, and so everybody tasted and, oh, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And they said, and it's all plant-based. And it was shocking. And they were telling a story about their father was diagnosed with stage 2 diabetes, and they went on a 90-day raw, kind of like vegetable vegan fast to clear it up. And then they started getting creative with how they did it, and they made this fried chicken product. They went and competed in fried chicken contests and beat out the real chicken with their chicken.
Okay.
So here you go. They said they were coming to get $500,000 to expand their operation to make more of the chicken in their product.
Plant-based.
And they said that we have profited roughly $70,000 off of our invention. So, you know, their numbers were a little off and everything like that. So 3 or 4 of the Shark Tank guys, they were out. Now, Mark Cuban says to them, he says, look, I'm going to give you $500,000, but I'm going to give it to you as an equity loan. And you can borrow on it and things of that nature. but for the 30% of your company. All right. So they were like, and then the other guy who was out came over and they started talking. And then they gave a whole nother deal. They said, look, we're going to pull that off the table. Tonight, we will write you a check for $1 million, but we want to own the rights to your product. And we're going to take that product on and we're going to give you 10% in perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
Yeah, in perpetuity of the product. What would you do?
Did they take the deal?
I'm asking you, what would you do, Doc?
Okay, well, a lot of things would come into play with that. On the one hand, they would have money in their hands. They would have money guaranteed to keep coming, and they wouldn't have to work to do anything for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some people, that would be a very good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? For some, it would be a very good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it depends on what their attachment is, because
Mm-hmm.
I often have people come to me and say, we offered you $3 or $5 million for Voice and Viewpoint, would you sell it?
Mm-hmm.
And give you cash. And my position is no, because the paper to me is more than the money,
Mm-hmm.
and the money is not the issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's a caveat to go with this plant-based thing, and I don't know if it came up in the conversation, but doctors have found that when people do this plant-based meat, there is a change in the estrogen level
Mm-hmm.
in the body, and that this change can be a very dangerous one, possibly leading to cancer.
And
Okay.
they addressed that because they said it was not soy-based, it was wheat-based. So
Okay.
the soy changes the estrogen,
All right.
but it was the wheat that they worked it out. So they kind of answered that question.
Well, I would think that not knowing the couple, depending on what their background and needs are, on first blush, I would say for them, that would be a good deal.
Yeah.
Just because that the people are not going to invest $1 million and not try to make it work and make it grow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a local example that reinforces that. I'm not going to call a name, but there's a person who had a local product some years ago, and they were marketing and selling it, and it was in great demand, and it was doing well. But they ran into issues on the production end because they couldn't keep enough employees, they couldn't turn out the volume that they needed, and then they start getting some lawsuits and challenges. So they made a very smart discovery. They discovered that if they sold the product to the Koreans or other Asian entity, that if those people bought the product and put their label on it, then the production was guaranteed because those people had the mechanism to market, okay, and therefore they couldn't go wrong with it. And it turned out to be a smart move. Now, in contrast, I look at in LA, there's a place called His and Hers Hair,
Mm-hmm.
where stars and different people go to get their weave,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And it's that they rent spaces and do private hair there, but they buy the hair products from outside there in a general open area that's totally controlled by the Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
And they're controlling the product coming in and the distribution of the product. And so on your example, I'm saying to our listeners, this is a situation where you start doing some research and understand in advance where we are. And this was one of the things that happened when my late wife, Jerry, and I did the Black Chamber here, the original Black Chamber. We took people on tours to places like the Pacific realm where they had products and let them see what. We made connections with people in terms of shipping, and we help people understand how the letters of credit work as opposed to cash. And so all of these things come into play. And if we take just a little bit of time and get outside the box, we can do very well.
And the key
So
was,
what did they do?
They didn't take the deal.
Okay.
And the key was, and everybody was like totally shocked. And the reason being is that these people were going to take all the risk, but they had the mechanism to take it to the next. This Mark Cuban alone, with all of his facilities, it was going to be a multi-million-dollar deal.
Right.
But with all of them together, it was going to be amazing. And the key thing that I was saying, in business school, they will say to you, 20% of something or 10% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And in this case, it didn't say that they couldn't make any more product. This was just about the chicken.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They could have came out with dipping sauces. They could
have sold the chicken rights and still done other business, and they could have done very well with it.
And so what's going to happen, and this is what my concern would be, is that once you put your product out there, people taste it, they sample it, and then they then come in and they clone it underneath their own patent, and then the uniqueness of your product.
Can get lost.
Exactly.
Okay, and a great danger with it. You know, uh, God has a sense of humor because I have a background and I have degrees in business and marketing, separate from law and other stuff. And so sometimes I forget things until a conversation take place. This is what happened with Patti LaBelle's pies, okay? Because that smart commercial led to that production. And what happened? Walmart jumped on it, and people started buying the pies, and they're still buying them today. Well, from my standpoint, the pies got too much sugar in it in terms of sweet
Yeah.
potato pies, too sweet. Okay,
And anything
but
that can stay on the shelf and not be refrigerated for days.
you got issues with it, okay? And see, for a lot of us in the early days, the past 20 years, when we came up with products like the Kwanzaa or the Black Christmas cards, the Kwanzaa cards, and people like Walmart decided to jump on the bandwagon, people got excited. But what you don't understand is that when you do a contract with a large franchise entity, you've got to be able to produce enough of the product to go in all of their stores because they can't be in some and not the other. And if it's not selling, then you're on the loss end because you have produced what you can't move. And so
Exactly.
all we have to do is just, if we want to get serious about business, if we want to get serious about, we are some of the most creative people in the world. If you stop and think about what black people have done in this country, we created the traffic light, we created the rubber tire, we created the air brake, we created the clock, we created the iron, we created a cotton gin. I mean, we just didn't, and so now we into a new normal where we got a whole new opportunity to create. And
Yes.
let's not leave out the 3D printer
Yeah.
that the kids in school are turning out face masks at home in the kitchen
Doc,
just because of the printer.
Doc, they trying to Kentucky Fried Chicken is trying to do 3D nuggets, printing nuggets, and it's just like they printing everything from human stem cells, all kind of things. Now we're almost out of time, so I know we want to pay homage to three of our civil rights leaders that have gone on to glory. Want to shout out to Nigel Smith. He just turned 36, and he wanted us all to know it. Nigel, I see you, brother. But let's talk about Charles Everett, C.T. Bynum, and John Lewis.
Well, you know, we really got more than that because
Yeah.
we started the year with the loss of Elijah Cummings,
Yes,
who was
yes.
a giant out of Baltimore. And then following him, we lost Reverend Joseph Lowry,
Wow, yeah.
who was one of the giants of the civil rights movements with Dr. King and into his 90s. And then we lost, C.T. Vivian. And C.T. Vivian was here in San Diego some 6 or 7 years ago at the Martin Luther King breakfast as a speaker, as one of those last giants from the civil rights movement with Dr. King. And then we lose John Lewis, who was certainly a giant, and we give tremendous homage to him. And I understand as of the day now we've lost Charles Everett. But I did an editorial this week where we talked about the changes that have come with the loss, because while we've lost these 5 giants on the national scene, locally we've lost giants like Dr. Carol Wayman, like Reverend George Walker Smith, and more recently Dr. Robert Matthews. And so we're losing people. But there used to be a saying in the 60s, and it's still strong today, that the strong keep a coming. And so now I'm making the observation, and I've sent this editorial out to all 200 papers in the country this week, that we want to go from talking about the passing of these great minds to the changing of the guard that it represents, where this now generation, Black Lives Matter and all those who are standing in the gap, Legal Defense Fund, the NAACP, these people are picking up the gauntlet. And two of the greatest things that can happen to complete John Lewis's legacy would be, number one, for Congress to pass to reinstate the Voting Rights Act of 1965, where Section 3, I think it was negated, which provided the monitors, and that conservative Supreme Court gutted the act by knocking that element out. So we need that passed in terms of him. Mitch McConnell was very interesting. He said that you didn't have to agree with him to respect him, but he didn't say anything bad about him. The second thing that needs to take place, and it can only be done in the state of Alabama, the Edmund Pettus Bridge needs to be renamed, after John Lewis.
Mhm.
And I think that the very fact that people witness and continue to see 50 years after the date, the beating and the humility with which it was taken, should understand that that's a fitting monument. But the greatest thing we can do is adopt the spirit of humility, service, and sincerity that he emulated and become as concerned for others as he was, to the extent that he was willing to make the sacrifice. And that's a missing element today because so many of us don't have to make sacrifices, but we want to make a new call to commitment. And commitment with prayer and clarity will help us be in a position to do that.
Well, Dr. Warren, as you can see, we have got to the end of our show. I want to say for next week, I'm going to just say this: Build Back Better versus Make America Great Again. I think that's what we'll start next week at. The campaign themes of both Joe Biden and President Donald Trump.
But you misquoted Trump's campaign.
Okay,
Because it's not Make America Great Again, it's Make America White Again.
Okay. Well, I missed that memo, but I do see Build Back Better versus Make America Great Again, and one's got red hat, the other one got a blue hat. Let's get into that topic. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. We've been promising you that we're going to be bringing on guests. We got all the technology
And we're
set
working
up,
on it.
and Dr. Warren is going to get it all lined up. I'm excited about this one because once they come on, it's going to be hotter than fish grease.
Oh, yeah. And that's pretty hot.
Yes. Y'all be blessed. We